the sound good? How did it sound? Nice? Okay, lovely.
Well, maybe we'll just jump right in. What's it like? Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here and congratulations. I thought it was like for me. I'm a writer, and I actually had that experience watching it where I was like incredibly awed and pretty jealous that you had made this, and it felt so assured. You know, I think that you made some really incredibly bold choices, and it was, to me, I never felt a false note in the acting, in the production, in the direction. I was just curious to start maybe with when, because I think we all know you primarily as an actor. When did this idea that you wanted to be a director begin? Is that something that got you into film originally, or did you always see yourself as an actor first?
Yeah, well, thanks for saying that as well about the film, because the amount of times I've watched it now, and I'm like seeing flaws, so many flaws that I wish I could have done that better, I wish I could have done that, but I think that's the nature of spending so much time looking at something, right, like when you're in post. But no, I was making these like short films as a kid, and I was making skate videos, and then I was kind of discovered acting at the same time, and then I almost went to film school, but weirdly acting kind of became easier to do because there was people to do it with, like when I was making the sort of short films, it was me and I was holding the wow.
We can talk about it later.
Do we like the light or no light?
Like the light.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you like the light? It's okay. We can bring it down. Is there levels of it? Or we can bring it down the time of it? No, or maybe like a colour? Could we? And so weirdly acting was, I found a community. I was doing like local theatre, and it was like something I could do with people, whereas filmmaking felt very inaccessible. Thank you. And and then when I started to get work as an actor, of course I ran with that, and I was really grateful for it, and I love it, but the writing was always something I was doing on the side and hoping to do eventually, and then I made a short film with the BBC when I was 22, and then that kind of led onto this after,
Did you bring crew from that into this, or was it your DP on this is named
Jose Dea? She's French Canadian. She's like, it's kind of amazing that she said yes to this. She's really a master. Like, she's frequent collaborator with Bonello and Irish Sax, and so when we first met, I was of course very insecure about talking to someone so established about a first film, but I think she just understood it, and we had a really good initial conversation. But she really pushed it in a way that I loved as well. She'd never been to London, she'd never shot in London, and we challenged each other in all the best ways, I think,
I mean, I think I imagine this conversation will just jump all over the place, but starting from there, there's such an incredible naturalism in the film, both in the way you shot it and in the performances, but then mixed with, like, there's a real kind of weird mysticism to it, or something expressionistic that you don't often see in a movie that's this grounded and this lived in. So what were those conversations you had with her about how to sort of bridge those two ideas? That I thought it felt incredibly seamless, but the way in which the camera, I felt like in the more sort of surreal aspects of the film, the approach to camera was very different. And so what were those conversations that you had with her about that?
We spoke early on about kind of entering into the world quite naturalistically and more observationally, quite documentary style. We did a lot of that stuff in the first section of the film on much longer lenses, and we were quite hidden, and it felt like we needed to slowly kind of earn our way into Mike's world in a sort of non-obtrusive way. And then as the film goes on, we sort of introduce different kind of language, and I think we were just trying to embrace the more abstract elements and not be afraid of it. I think that like there's an obvious form around a genre like this or around a subject like this, and we were sure that we wanted to kind of give it an elegance, you know, and not just feel we needed to be sort of handheld or like gritty or anything. And it was just about trying to make nice frames, and the more surreal elements of the film, I think, slowly came in at script stage. But I did definitely started the development process in a very natural world, like kind of spent a lot of time in the community and working with different organisations and advisors, and then once I kind of got that to a place that everyone felt comfortable with, we then felt it was, you know, we'd afforded ourselves to go there in that way. But I think we were constantly sort of dancing the line of asking ourselves, is it pretentious? Is it too, you know, does it misrepresent? But I just like the idea of magic and like a fable-like storytelling, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's too like weird to be pretentious in a way, in a good way. I mean, I thought that
someone said to me after the premiere in New York, they were like, "Yeah, I saw the movie and I thought that guy's kind of weird." And I was like, "Yeah, well, that's me." So I don't know if he knew I was the director or not. So
no, I mean, I think in the best way, it feels like you said, you very definitely put the audience, I think, in Mike's perspective and his view of the world, and I think that's really challenging to do. And so when the parts of the film that do feel incredibly naturalistic, all of these amazing long lens shots where Mike's on the street and you're in London, were those like, how controlled was that set? Was he? It felt to me watching it, I'm like, this guy is just on that street corner asking people for change, and those are real people. But is that background, or how did you film those?
It was a mix. Like there was times where we would just give Frank a radio and send him off and kind of give him rough guidelines of what the frame was, and then people would kind of interact with him. And then sometimes we had people that we'd hired that he didn't know what they were going to do, for example. So there was a kind of collision of ideas in a way, which really worked. And then for example, the scene in the square where the couple that kiss, you know, and the sort of a lot of the people I found. There's a few amazing theatre companies that comprise of people that had lived experience of homelessness and addiction. So we brought a lot of people in from those organisations, and then I kind of found a lot of people over a couple of years where I'd just meet someone at a pub and be like, "Do you want to be in the film that I'm making?" And then I would just collect kind of a list of people, and I didn't necessarily know where they were going to fit into the film. But then when we came to casting it, I just brought them in and tried out different roles, and then it meant that there was non-professional actors mixing with Frank, who's, you know, a highly trained actor, and it just worked because it meant that he was sort of surrounding him with an eclectic group of characters. And then the scene in the square where we had that sort of fight, and that silly fight, that was more controlled because it was a big day, and so all of the people in that scene were background artists. Yeah.
How many days did you have shooting?
28. Yeah, 28 days. Which was tough. I mean, it tested us. Some days were harder than others. Like there were certain days where we had like 3 unit moves, which is a lot with a crew and trying to move everything. But I just stupidly wrote too many locations. Is the answer. You know, I wrote 39 locations, and no one said to me.
And Archie, your producer.
Yeah, and Archie, my producer, was like, "Sure, we'll make it work." And then the locations teams were just sort of scrambling around. And I think London actually it isn't the kind of place where you can just drop a camera at any point. You have to have a permit to put a track down on most streets. The council have to know exactly kind of how you want to shoot stuff. So behind the scenes was a huge kind of orchestration and effort from a team of people that really championed the way I wanted to do it and made it work. But yeah, and for example, when we got to the hotel section, we were in a more controlled environment, right? So those days felt a little less chaotic because we had time as well in those days.
Yeah, and that hotel, that's a build, or that was a location that you found with the sort of pink shower that feels like a cell that he's in?
Oh, that his hostel was a real place, and then the hotel he worked at was a real hotel that I actually worked at when I was sort of like 18 to 20. And so it was helpful because it meant that when I'd written a lot of those scenes, when we came to shooting it, I'd really imagined the geography of the scenes, kind of exactly how I wanted them to be. So when we got there, it was perfect. It meant that we could go from the kitchen to the hot plate to the dining room. And the guy that was the head chef at the time when I worked there, he came on to advise, and he also taught Frank to cook a little bit. So yeah, it was a nice sort of full circle moment for us in that way.
That's amazing. I'm gonna keep nerding out about some of the camera stuff. But when you in those scenes, the sort of long lens, natural is success at the beginning, when you're sort of pulling with Frank and he's running down a massive street, that's a track with a long lens and someone running with a dolly, or how did you guys do that?
No, we were in like a car on the back of the car, and we couldn't like afford to shut down the street, so we had like 2 goes at that, and we had to get it right. And the first one was trash, and the second one luckily worked. But it's funny because when you get arrested, you have to be really careful about fake police officers in public, especially if you can't shut the street down. So there was times where when he was getting arrested, that was just an open street, and the reactions to him getting arrested are real, which is great. But then you have to, of course, all the ADs are like running around trying to get consent forms, and otherwise we can't use the shot and stuff. So yeah.
Well, maybe to talk a little bit about Frank, because he's really fantastic in it. When did he come on board, and is he somebody that you would sort of develop the script for or with, or I thought that was a really phenomenal performance, and would be interested to hear what your experience was working with him.
Yeah, he's incredible. He poured so much into this. Like, luckily we cast him about 8 months before we started shooting. Like we didn't have the film fully financed, and he sort of, despite that, he came on and committed to it, which is really rare, I think. And as you know, it's like not common for an actor to do that. So it meant that we had a long time to prep together, and I was just able to introduce him to various different advisors, and he went off and did his own work. But I don't know, it just gave us time to really explore Mike beyond even what I'd written as well, just to keep on going back into the script and finding new truths for him and new moments and scenes. But he's someone who, despite on screen he's so free and has a sort of volatility to him and unpredictability, he's very diligent and hardworking, comes with a huge amount of thoughts and ideas, and I think it's rare that he's the kind of actor that will just he'll try stuff that is potentially wrong, but he's unafraid, and I think it shows in the film, because he just was willing to go to places that some actors aren't, because they're scared of getting it wrong.
Yeah, it's an incredibly vulnerable performance, but I felt it's a kind of a magic trick that you guys pulled off, that I think he the things that character does are very, he's a chaos machine to a lot of people that his life passes, but I think you as a viewer have a ton of empathy, I think, for him along the way, without at least exposing a lot of backstory, or to talk about how he ended up in this situation. So I wonder, when you were speaking to him as an actor or as a director, and how deep into the backstory did you guys go, or did you sort of allow him to build that out as he saw fit?
Yeah, we went pretty deep with it, and there was certain elements in the script that ultimately ended up coming out because it felt too much. There was some scenes that you know, he had with his mum, and there was some more information in the script that we just took out that didn't feel necessary. But I think we always spoke about dignifying him and trying to try not to victimize him as well, in a way, so that we can kind of be on his back and go through all these different decisions and try and get some insight into why he navigates himself like that. And I think that also takes a deep sensitivity and humour as well, right? Like stories like this, characters like this deserve levity, because that is often the case with people that have gone through severe things, right? Like they're also super exuberant and comical types.
Yeah. No, I thought he was very both like funny and engaging and heartbreaking. I think we only have a few more minutes left. I wanted to maybe quickly ask about the scene, the bonfire scene where he's been sober for a while, and he's with I don't remember the character's name, but who offers him K. And I thought that was such a fantastic shot that you see him, he's out of focus, and the bag of K comes up, and you can see him sort of twitching in the background, and then it racks to him, and that's not a question, I just thought it was terrific, but that whole sequence, I wanted you to talk about how scripted do you like something like that to be, and then when it goes into the more, I thought there were some really terrific kind of party vibe scenes in this that I think are really hard to pull off and feel naturalistic, and just how did you kind of manifest that stuff on set?
Well, the whole section with Andrea and her friends was a tough one, because it's an opportunity for connection, which we know is obviously very deep and meaningful, and offers like a potential transformation for him. But at the same time, they're a group that are operating on the sort of margins, but they also have a foot in just like everyday life, and they're working and they're holding down lives, right? But they're kind of using drugs in a more casual, recreational way, and there's a potential that Mike could do that as well, right? Like find a way to do that, which we know is impossible for someone that's at one point been severely addicted to a substance. It's like you could never really go and just have fun now and again and then step out of it. So that whole section for me was also about offering up a sense of like sometimes of like idealism for him, right? These new people that are discussing sort of lofty themes. You know, he's there talking about the Industrial Revolution and education sort of being a conspiracy, and then the party scenes. I think the party scenes with the girls in the hotel, I really wanted to do something quite juvenile. I mean, that was probably the sort of silliest, tackiest sequence, you know.
Maybe the lightest in some ways.
Yeah, and they're kind of living a childhood, teenage fantasy of being on a roof and, you know, setting things on fire, which is, you know, a bit of a rite of passage when you're like 16 or like 40, but they're much older. But still, I think there's a validity to him doing that, because he's missed out on that as well. And so I think I really wanted to embrace the joy of that moment and let him just fully let go and be a bit of a kid, you know.
Yeah, no, I think it's very effective. This might maybe be the last question, but the scene at the deli, the bodega at the end, where he's trying to climb over the counter and he's, I'll butcher it, but he keeps saying, you know, not for you.
Yeah.
I thought that was incredibly powerful and just incredibly concise about what the experience of someone on the margins feels like. Where did that sort of come from, or how long did you have that moment in your mind of where that sort of breaking point might come?
Well, I mean, for me that feels like the sort of crescendo of the film a bit, and I was always, I don't know how you find it, like you're an incredible writer, but I always struggled with expositional moments and trying to find ways to express the character, like Mike's true feelings, and instead of him saying, you know, I'm on the outside, no one wants to give me a chance, it's like he's trying to offer him the question of like, do you ever feel like someone's there just telling you no, not for you? And then he's like, Do you ever feel like that? It's clearly just about himself, but I think it was just it was a hard scene, that. It was a really hard scene. And I think the shopkeeper's amazing in that scene.
He's great.
Well.
I wondered if was he a non-professional actor? Or
He was an actor.
Yeah.
He came in and read for it. Yeah, he was really sort of stoic, but also very sensitive to the moment of that. But yeah, delicate kind of scene now, difficult to do. You know.
No, I thought you nailed it. Well, I want to ask one more question. Sorry. About the use of music in the film, because I thought it really, you know, a lot of times again in a movie that begins as naturalistic, you know, there isn't a lot of score at the beginning, and then it starts to come in as this great sort of synth, and you know, there are quite a few great needle drops, and just, did you write with those in mind, or did you have, what was the process of sort of finding and scoring the movie?
I mean, the needle drops, like Atomic Kitten, the karaoke song, was always in the script. The song at the end was always there. The score was tricky because we, yeah, like you say, we don't have it for so long, and then it comes in. I think I just lent into the idea of going quite maximalist for it, and I really love electronic music, and I think it kind of works to counter an expectation around emotion as well. Like, it's not too sincere, but it still has a power and a depth to it, right? Like the moment when he is confronted with Simon, the victim, and that truck comes in, it was like a difficult balance to elevate it but not force emotion upon anyone. But yeah, I think it works because there's not too many cues in the film. Like there's only like 4 or 5 like actual score cues that we composed, you know.
Well, they worked. They're great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Errol, for coming here. Thanks. Congratulations.